Hey guys, I just want to say I messed up a bit on this fly. I used too much material for the size of the hook, but after trimming it, I made it look pretty good. So enjoy the video and let me know what you think. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. EP fiber can be incredibly difficult to tie with, but also can be really rewarding. It's one of those fibers that you really have to play with and figure out the amount of fibers for the thickness, the length, how to trim it. But you can make some really cool flies, and the color combinations are endless. Freshwater, saltwater, offshore, it doesn't matter. You can tie these to look like any kind of baitfish. The one I'm going to make today is not going to be any kind of natural color. It's going to be an electric chicken, because this is a pattern that I've wanted to try. I'm going to do it on a size 2, so it's going to be a bit smaller. I have all my materials pre-cut and laid out, so hopefully I can do this pretty quick. Trimming will be, we'll talk about that when we get there, because that's a whole different side of it. Tying it in is not too bad. Once you get around the hook point, after that, then it's not as bad. The thread I am using is my typical 210 denier Danville. I like using it on a lot of my saltwater patterns, just a stronger thread. And this color is shell pink. So I'm going to work my thread all the way back to just before the bend. I think about right there. So for the length, this fiber is similar to EP. It's water silk from Fly Tire Dungeon. To me, it feels a little softer than water or regular EP, but I figured I'd try it out. So for the length, I took a full length section and I cut it in half, and that's what I'm gonna tie in for my tail. So like I said, this is gonna be a smaller pattern, so I didn't want to use the full length. So try to find your midsection, and we're gonna tie this directly on top. And that's something that you want to try to do with EP fiber, is keep it directly on the hook, on top and bottom. I know it can be pretty difficult, but that way your colors aren't going to blend as bad. And like I said, this stuff can be really difficult to work with, especially with you don't have any pinch in your hand. So I'm just checking, make sure that I got it mostly on top of the shank where I want it. And then we're going to come in with the pink. Doing the bottom for the first couple is always kind of difficult for me. Just trying to get the fibers around the hook point evenly. So I'm going to try my best here. Once again, try to find the midpoint and tie that in. I take my bodkin, if I can grab it here, and I just try to split this on either side of the point. And I try to do it as evenly as possible. Now I'm going to go back to my top color, Try to fold it back and hold it there. And I don't know if you could see that, but that first wrap grabbed it and pulled it, which would be towards y'all, towards the far side of the hook, and I don't want that. I want it to be right on top. It'll give better results in the end. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the pink. And it's usually this part right here that's kind of difficult because I can't take it and really pull it to where I need it to go. So if I was able to, I would try to split that fiber and just hold it back with 2 fingers, but can't really do that, so I just have to try to work at it. And what I am going to do is go ahead and try to split it, because that might help. Just take that and hold it. Try to hold it back as best as you can until you can get that first thread wrap around it. This one is gonna fight me. See if I can get my hand under there and hold that. Like I said, once you get past this part, then it's not as bad. But there is another example. The thread pulled that pink more to one side, and I don't want it to be on top with the chartreuse, so I'm going to try to pull that back down some. I think that'll be pretty good. Now I'm just going to try to lock all this in without it moving. And we'll go right there in front of that little bump that we made from tying both of those in. It looks pretty even for the most part. These colors that I am using, it is hot chartreuse and hot pink water silk. So now again with another piece of chartreuse, and these ones I took the halves and I cut them in half, and this is just going to start building up the body. Once again, try to find that midpoint. I'm going to spin my bobbin so it makes it a little easier on me. And these flies can be hard to make look how you want it, how you imagine it in your head. When I first started tying with EP fiber, I could never get the fly to look exactly how I imagined that it should look. And even with trimming, I have trimmed on these for hours, just trying to get that fiber, trying to get the shape that I want, trying to get everything perfect. And it is very difficult to do. Just like that, and again, take your bodkin. And we're just going to split these fibers. It looks like it has spun some. I'm going to try to correct that. Pull this top one over. really try to do your best to keep it on top. I know it's really difficult, especially when you can't put a whole lot of tension on it, but just do your best. Just fooling fish, doesn't have to be perfect. I like to make them as perfect as I can, but at the end of the day, I just have to accept that it's probably as good as I'm going to get it. So once again, we're kind of close to the hook point, so trying to hold these fibers back. And once again, just tie this down. And we'll go right in front of that bump again. I can already tell that the body has pulled more to one side than the other. So there's going to be probably some exposed thread. I'm going to try to fix it with this next piece that I'm going to tie in. And that's something that you just have to watch for when you're doing it. I don't know. You can see how that side right in here is covered, but on this side you can see that thread. So that's something to watch out for. And that's one of the tricky things about working with this fiber. Is just trying to keep it perfect. So this should be the last piece of the body that I'm going to do. Same as the last one. Tie it in directly on top. I'm going to give this one a few extra wraps just so it doesn't move on me. Melt like that. Leave my thread right there. And take the pink. That one I think I got more about where it needs to be. I'm going to take the pink here and I'm going to try to grab it and pull it. So this happens with me a lot, just trying to keep fiber on either side, trying to keep it where I don't have more on one side than the other. So it's usually something that I fight with a lot on these flies. And I could probably do better if I worked on them more. I don't tie these too often. I have some in my box for throwing at jacks or anything else I might encounter. Once again, I'm going to try to pull all this fiber back. And this is probably going to be a longer video, so I apologize about that. Just like that. And then we'll pull back the chartreuse and tie it in. Doing the top fiber, for me anyway, is always easier than tying in the bottom fiber. So now, once again, I'm just going to wrap over all that. Make sure it's tied down really good, and we'll go right in front. I'm hoping my fiber for the head is going to be long enough to cover that up, but we'll see. So the way I'm going to do the head, if you've ever seen backwater fly fishing, he does this where you stack the fiber, and it can be difficult. I've gone with some thicker pieces because I think that's part of my problem, but it's also trying to get the fiber around the hook at 360 full coverage. I like doing them like this. It makes the head more full, so it pushes more water, and it's going to sit higher in the water column. But it can be really tricky to do. I have a piece of a pen here that I use. Try to fluff all that up. Got decent coverage on that one, so that doesn't look terrible. I'm a little happier with that than the last one I did. I'm going to take my thread right in front of that bump, and the way I'm going to do the head on this, I'm going to try to do a mottled look. So I'm going to do 2 pink, and then I'm going to do some chartreuse, and then I'll probably do one of each closer I get to the eye of the hook. I think it makes it look neat. Do the fish care? Probably not, but I kind of like the look of it. And all I'm doing is trying to find, kind of guessing the hook point or the midpoint of the fiber, giving it a couple loose wraps just to hold it, and then trying to do 360 with that. I'm gonna back off the wrap on that. Try to pinch it, pull it around. The bottom is what usually gets me on this. I can usually get the sides really good and the top, but it's usually the bottom where I don't get the coverage that I want. Once again, the pen, try to fluff it. Try to keep some of these fibers on the bottom to help cover that. And this part is probably one of the trickiest parts of this fly, because I know how I want that fiber. I'm going to unwrap that. Cinch down on that really good, and then go right in front. So I got this looking good. You can come through with a brush every now and then. Just brush that out. Keep it, make sure you got everything looking how you want. And the fly will look wild right now. At this early stage like this, you'll think that you messed up, but just finish tying it and then give it a good haircut, and then you'll start to see your fly come together. And now with the chartreuse. So I think what I'm going to do with the chartreuse, because I didn't do the clumps as thick as I did with the pink, I think I'm going to tie in 2 pieces, one on top, one on bottom. And that's another way that you can do it. If I can grab it. If you're having problems with getting the coverage that you want, tie one on top and one on bottom and try to spin them both. And same thing, take your pen, try to fluff all that out. Oh shit. So if you're having trouble like I am keeping all that fiber back, use your pen to push it back and then put your hand over top of it and then try to wrap that in. That way it stays back, makes it a little easier. I got pretty good coverage on that using 2 clumps. I'm going to try to flatten this out a little bit because my next clump I want to go in about right there. So just using my thread to flatten that some so that it doesn't slip when I tie it in. At this stage, I'm going to start doing one of each color. until I get to the eye of the hook. The same thing, just trying to get that full coverage. Now this one's probably not going to turn out the best. It looks like it's going to be a bit thicker than I wanted, but we'll have to see after I trim it. Again, I'm going to use my straw and just push down on all that. Try to trap it. Bottom, try to pull it. There. So I see some mistakes. I should have made the body pieces a bit shorter. And the head maybe just a bit thinner. And that's something with EP fiber. It's just trial and error. You gotta find the best way for you to figure it out. I know a lot of people, they say just use a pencil's diameter, do measurements like that. Well, I don't hold pencils very often anymore, so something like that doesn't really work for me. So it's just really, you're gonna have to sit down and tie a few and just kind of figure it out. So this might be my last piece just because the thread is slipping now. But I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna tie in 2 clumps just to help get that coverage on the bottom that I want. And try to push that all around. Cinch it down real nice. I'm going to do my best to pull all this fiber back. So, not pretty at all. I can see where I've messed up quite a bit. Crowded the eye a little bit. I think it'll be alright. The head wall gets cement, or the thread wraps will get cemented, so I'm not worried about it falling apart. I just don't like how that fiber right there. But if you have a cauterizing tool or a good razor blade, then you can trim some of that back. I'm gonna go ahead and whip finish. Get my thread out of the way. And I'm gonna throw in one more just because I'm gonna trim it before I cement anything. And I don't want them thread wraps coming undone, because then your fly comes apart and it's very aggravating. Alright, so this fly, it looks rough. And we're gonna try to fix that the best we can. First, take your brush and just brush all this fiber out. Don't want to get the body just yet, just the head. Try to get it to stand up some. Now what I like to do is I'm gonna have to turn the vise up towards me a little bit. So what I do is I use my hook eye as a guide of the angle I want the head. And I did make the head pretty thick on this, so that was another mistake. I am going to do my best to trim that down to make it look better, but that's just one of them things you got to figure out the thickness of the material you're using. I should have known better, because I know EP fiber builds up really fast. So that was really my mistake. I got these long fibers around the back of the head. I'm going to come in and try to cut out. Really what you're doing here is you're shaping the head, and then, like with me, I'm trying to thin it out just a little bit, because I don't like how thick it is, and that really bugs me. Alright, so since I got the head trimmed some, I'm going to take the fly out of the vise, because I can't do it in the vise for this next part. And I'm not going to show you all the whole trimming process, because it takes a while. And some bigger scissors. I like using, they're harder to use, but I like using my longer scissors for this next part. So take all of this and fluff it out, because this is where you're going to make the shape and the length. So try to stand that up the best you can. And then I just lay it flat on my desk, because that's the easiest way I can do it. And I come in here and I start trimming it. So looking back, I should have used probably just one clump for the body, And I should have went a lot thinner. Try to round off these edges here. I think this is where I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to show you all the progress I've done. Because for me, it takes a really long time just to trim them and get the shape that I want. And I'll slide my vise over. So, like that, and you just keep trimming on it until you get the shape that you want. Mine looks really rough. I went too thick on the fiber, but I'm going to keep trimming on that and see if I can fix it. But you'll get the general idea of it. Trim it until you're happy with it, or get rid of it. Either or. Practice. Just use this practice. But that's going to be it. I am going to finish trimming on this and see if I can make it look like something. Sorry about the length of the video. I know it's a long one. But if y'all like this, please consider subscribing. We're almost to 500. Give this video a thumbs up. And hopefully I'll have a fishing video here pretty soon for y'all. So with that, have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one.